It's the TCTV training show. The TCTV training show. We'll teach you how to shoot. We'll teach you how to light. Teach you how to mic and edit right. Each second Saturday there's a free training, from programs on display to focusing and framing. It's the TCTV training show. The TCTV training show. You're watching TCTV. It's the training show. The TCTV training show. Second Saturdays at 12 o'clock in Studio A.
Welcome to Second Saturday for September. I'm Deb. Most of you know me. I think I know most of you. This is a really brief introduction to directing, and I know if you've gone through the studio control room class, you actually might have this handout already. It's been modified slightly. This is a handout that I've used for years and years and years, because even though technology changes, directing doesn't. It's pretty much the same thing from one environment to another. And the other thing that I have learned over the years, the 32 years that I've been doing this, is that a lot of what you learn as a director can be applied in a lot of other ways. So if you're out in the field doing a single camera shoot, or you're sitting in an edit suite and you're trying to, figure out what your show is going to look like, some of what you consider as a director applies in those environments also. So, so we'll jump in. When I learned how to do this, I remember distinctly my college professor saying, television is not a democracy, and the director is God. So that's kind of how I grew up, learning how to direct. But I refer to it in this as being more of you're more like the captain of a ship, and it's your job to make sure everything runs smoothly. The tricky thing about directing, I think the trickiest thing for people to learn is not necessarily how to call the shots or figure out the flow of a show, but it's literally to see what's in front of them. So can we pop the multi-view up on the monitor out here? This is what you see when you're sitting, next to your switcher in the control room. You see all of this stuff. And I think this is the hardest thing for people who are learning how to direct to do, is to literally see everything that's up here. And the thing that's important to remember is you don't necessarily have to look at everything that's up here. You just have to be aware that there's a lot going on. So if you've taken the control room class, you know that this is the layout of our new switching system. This box is your program video. So whatever's in this box that's surrounded by red, that's what's being recorded. Whatever's in this box is in preview, meaning it's, in standby. You could go to it next. You could look at another camera. You can set a different shot. These are the 4 cameras that are available. Cameras 3 and 4 are the robotic cameras, and they're controlled from in the control room. Cameras 1 and 2 are the manual cameras. They're out here. And then up here we have some other things. Our video inserts on VT A and B, what the graphic is that's available on the character generation, and if we have something come through the frame sync. So these are all video sources that you can switch to. And as a director, you kind of need to be aware of what's on that screen. I think the biggest challenge people have when they're learning how to direct is to not get sucked in to what's happening up here and forget about what's happening here. Because you see it happen all the time. People are like going, okay, camera 2, no, pan to the right, a little more, a little more, a little more. Yeah, okay, well, that's a great shot. In the meantime, this person down here is no longer the person talking, and somebody else on the set is talking, and you've got a person sitting here, no lips moving, and a disembodied voice someplace. So it's kind of, you have to kind of learn how to see what's in front of you, but be aware of what's in the periphery. And that just takes practice. You just have to do it. So, so let's go through what I would do as a director, and that's basically what this handout, where this handout came from, is just my experience. I think it's very important, A, to remember that you're dealing with human beings, and you should never make it personal. I have worked under directors in other places who swore, who demeaned the people who were running camera, who we called them screamers. And they're not people that they might be incredibly skilled directors in getting a beautiful product out at the end of the show, but they're horrible with people, and you don't want to work with them a second time. So I would like to think that here at TCTV, people want to be a part of what's going on. So you have to remember, 9 times out of 10, you're working with volunteers, and you need to treat them like human beings. So you can be firm, you can be pointed, you can be direct, but you can be polite at the same time. And a director needs to be all of those things sometimes. So I encourage you, if you're directing for somebody else's show, for example, you're the director for, say, Glenn Anderson's show. Glenn's always the host. He's always in front of the camera. It's really important to meet with him and understand what his vision is so that you as the director can bring his vision to light. How many guests are going to be? How many topics are going to be covered? What's the length of the show? You know, graphics, a lot of that stuff's already set up. Do you need graphics? Are there pre-recorded elements? Is there B-roll that's going to be coming in? And, you know, what's the set decor going to look like? Now, in a lot of the situations here at TCTV, a lot of those things are determined by somebody else, and the director just comes in to call the shots. But it's important to understand what all those things are so you know how to make the director's vision, or make the producer's vision come to life. I encourage people, when you're planning a show, to consider how many people are going to be in front of the cameras and try to limit it to, this is my recommendation, it's not a hard and fast rule, but there are reasons for it. I try to limit things to 3 guests and a host, so a maximum of 4 people in front of the cameras. Some cases you have a whole lot more. The trick about dealing with that, and this is kind of where the role of producer and director mushes together a little bit. If you've got a host and 6 guests for a 1-hour show, theoretically, each person gets 10 minutes to share their story. So if the host is asking some questions and person 1 talks for their 5 or 10 minutes, now there's 50 minutes of them sitting on the set while other people are talking, potentially about something that is not their area of expertise or concern. So if you have a show that's big enough to have 6 people in front of the camera, or 8 or however many, consider dividing it up into sections so that, like, section A is going to have Joe and Mary and Bob, and they're going to talk about fundraising. And section B is going to be Sue and Ellen and Ray, and they're going to talk about operation. And, you know, and break the show into segments and put a little PSA or something between the segments. That way, people have a reasonable amount of time to talk and a reasonable amount of time on camera without having just to sit there and politely listen to everybody else, you know, wax. So think about that. Think of how you structure it. When you come in on the day of a show, you really need to establish yourself as the leader. And this is, again, where, you know, don't make it personal, but you're the director of the program. Things need to be done the way you need to have them done. I think it's really important to talk with your crew, sit them down and say, this is how I direct. It's important for you to understand what I expect from you as the camera operators. In most cases, when people come into the studio here, you have a sense of what other people's skills are. But if you're working with people whose skills you're not really certain of, it's okay to ask questions. You know, how many times have you run camera on a show like this? Oh, this is my first time. How many times have you run audio on a show like this? I've run audio 15 times. Maybe you should run audio today. You know, things like that. And I recognize that people often walk through the door and want to do a specific thing. I've never run camera before. But if you're uncomfortable with the skill level of the people you're working with, it's better to say, I really need you here where I know you can do the job, than out there when I'm not really certain, you know, because I've never worked with you in that capacity. So ask those questions and find out. And some people, you know, maybe don't really care what they do when they walk in and crew. It's often also a really good idea to have a kind of a second in command who can field kind of the B-level questions that come in. You know, should I move the chair to the right or the left? You know, where's the coffee? Stuff like that. Because the closer you get to your recording time, the more important it is for you to focus on your task at hand. And again, never make it personal. People are here to volunteer. It's important that they feel valued and supported and engaged. Now, I'll be the first person to say that running camera, or actually, technically pretty much anything in a studio environment in a talk show, is not necessarily the most exciting program you can do because nothing's moving. You know, it's not like football where you have a lot of movement. And camera operators especially can get distracted because I've set my shot, now that's my shot. I tell camera operators when I work with them, please do not reset your shot unless I ask for it. Because you may be sitting on a long shot for 15 minutes, and that may be the shot I need at some point. And at some point, if the camera operator gets bored and goes, well, I think I'll zoom in on the thing on the table and I need the long shot and it's not there, that's when I get really frustrated. So that's how I direct. I ask people, you know, I appreciate a modicum of initiative if we're in an environment that requires people to, you know, like a parade or a sports event or something like that. But that doesn't mean you have the autonomy to get any shot you want. So it's really important to establish those criteria with your camera operators so they understand, you know, what you need, and it alleviates frustration all the way around. Okay. So on the second page, directing and camera composition. There's a couple, whoa, that's a switcher. It's really important as a director to make sure that when you give a command or a direction to a camera operator, you are specific. Telling a camera operator, pan a little, doesn't tell them enough. You need to tell them which direction and what you're trying to accomplish in the shot. Close-up is king. We have a horizontal medium. It's wider than it is tall. Human beings are vertical, you know. So a close-up is king. In general, the viewing audience wants to see the person that's talking pretty much all the time. So having, you want to pop that long shot up now? So having a long shot that establishes where you are, okay, oh look, this thing's taking place in a studio and there's a bunch of people, is great. But in this particular shot, the viewing audience doesn't necessarily want to look at the back of Tom's head, they want to see me. So you're going to go to the close-up because I'm the one who's given the information. So the technique of directing, here it is. It's a pretty simple formula. Long shot, close-up, 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 long shot, close-up, 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 long shot, close-up, 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 two-shot, maybe, you know. But you see the formula there? I've got 5 times as many close-ups as I do long shots. A long shot like this one, like that one, like this one right here, this long shot. I always call that my ditch shot. It's the shot I can ditch to if I've directed myself into a hole, okay? So having a long shot established somewhere, that thing you can go to that shows everything that's going on and all the faces that are talking, that's always a good thing to have in your back pocket as a director. But generally speaking, you want to go from close-up to close-up. Now, I'm presuming, okay, see on cameras 2 and 3? Okay, so camera 2, zoom in just a little bit more, Dan. Just make it a little tighter. Okay, stop there. Okay, so Robert, would you pop 2 up out here? Okay, so we're talking, and now we're going to take 3. Okay, that's called a jump cut. There isn't a significant, okay, go back to 2, watch it. Go back to 3. Okay, go back to 2. Okay, zoom out just a little bit, Dan. A little bit more. Okay, go back to 3. See how I just jump back and forth in the frame? Okay, that's a jump cut. When you are switching from a close-up, you never want to go to, or from a long shot for that matter, any shot, long shot or close-up. You don't go from close-up to close-up of the same subject or long shot to long shot because that's what happens. Everything just jumps in the frame. So you want to have a significant difference. It's not a problem to go from this would be called a medium shot, to, you want to give me a tight shot on 3 or, yeah, okay. It would be not a problem to go from this, which is 2 or 3, to camera to camera 3, okay? It's enough of a difference in what it looks like that it's not visually disturbing to your viewer. So watch the jump cuts. So a jump cut is any time you go from one shot to a very similar shot on another camera of basically the same subject or the same scene. Everything just kind of jumps around. You want to go from a long shot to a medium shot or a long shot to a close-up. Blah, 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 I'm talking. And I go, okay, Roz, so what do you think about that? And then we take a close-up of Roz. Okay, that's great. We're going from one subject to another. Close-up to close-up. That's fine. But watch your jump cuts. I see that a lot because people just don't realize that's what they're doing. And sometimes if you direct yourself into a hole somehow, it's like, okay, I've got 3 close-ups of the same person and no long shot. But the camera you need to get the long shot on is the camera that's hot. I've had that happen. What would you do? Cover. I would take one of my other close-up cameras. I would go to somebody on the, if there was another guest who might be just listening and reacting, I'd get a close-up of them doing this kind of thing. So I'd free up my long shot camera and then go take my long shot camera along so I had something to go to. But always have a long shot. Always have something you can go to when you direct yourself into a hole, because I will guarantee it will happen. It happens to me frequently. Okay, watch your framing. Check your headroom. Headroom is this. Nose room is this. It's your job as the director to coach your camera operators. Camera operators, after they've had some experience, should kind of intuitively know that they need a little more headroom. If I'm facing this way, you need more space out here, and enough room up here. Then if I turn around and start to go this way, the camera has to, do exactly that and keep more space out in front of me. So it's your job as the camera operator to direct that. Specifically, camera 1, I need more room in front of them. I need more nose room. Match your shots. Okay, this is my close-up. This is Tom's close-up. When you are setting your shots to direct a talk show, you want all your close-ups to be basically the same. You want the people in the frame to be the same size. So I'm this big, I'm framed from just, below my shoulder up. So we want to frame Tom the same way. We're going to zoom in. Can we get a little tighter, or is that it? Too much. Split the diff. There we go. So these are about the same. So that way, if you cut from the close-up of Tom to the close-up of me, visually, there's not a big difference in the size of the person. We look the same. So watch your framing, match your shots. Okay. And, show the action. The person who's talking should be the person who's on the camera. Now, you need to anticipate. When you're in a talk show environment, you need to anticipate what's going on. So not only do you have to be aware of all this, you have to be listening. Generally speaking, you want to cut on the period. They get to the end of the sentence, you're going to cut on the period. Or if there's a big pause, a natural vocal pause, you cut on the pause. And that's if you're going to go to another person, take a reaction shot, cut to your long shot. Anytime you're going to change your scene, you cut on the period. And remember, if the camera doesn't see it, it doesn't exist. And this is, I think it's really wonderful when producers put a lot of thought into their set and what's going to be behind their crew. And oh, look, we have this beautiful big flower arrangement to put back here in the corner. It'll look great when you walk through the door here, but it'll never show up on camera. So be aware when you're planning, if you're producing, when you're planning your set, you want some visual interest behind the people, on either side. And maybe something, if you're going to have a long shot establishing, like this shot now, it kind of says, this is nice. We've got this nice big logo back here. It kind of establishes everything. But when you're on a close-up of me, stand on a close-up of me, you see a little bit of the TCTV behind me, but he could zoom into a tight enough shot that you're not really going to see it. So it's nice that it's there. It's great for the audience that walks through the door, but it doesn't mean a whole lot to the viewing audience. Plan for contingencies, and we mean visual contingencies a lot of times. Maybe the producer forgot to tell you, oh, Joe is going to stand up and, you know, show off the costume he's wearing. Well, if you've got a really tight close-up of Joe, and all of a sudden Joe stands up, now you've got Joe framed like this, you know. So, you know, you need a contingency for that, so you want to make sure you've got a shot to go to. Write things down before the show. If you're lucky enough to have a script, mark it up. I'm going to use camera 1 for this. I'm going to use camera 2 for that. And so, like, we have this little sample script here that's pretty much an introduction. Welcome to Sound Waves. So you can, you know, decide if you have a script how you want to lay out the show. So if I were marking this, I might say, okay, we're going to use camera 1 on a long shot, camera 1 long shot for the welcome to. We're going to cut to camera 2 close up on today is, and then go back to the long shot on camera 3 because we have a monitor and we're going to show a video and we're going to show the countdown to the video while this is running. You know, so you can mark all this stuff up. Create a rundown if you've got time. This is a rundown, which basically is the elements of the program and the order they're going to run and how long they're going to last. Terminology, and this is important because people tend to use terms a little leisurely. And it can be very confusing, so we'll just talk about some things. An extreme close-up. Okay, that's it. That's an extreme close-up. My hair looks pretty good today. Okay. Okay, a close-up might be me from the neck up or from just below the shoulder. Okay, a medium shot would be like from the waist up. Keep going. A long shot would be whole body. An extreme long shot, the whole room. It's all relative. It's all relative to how close you are to your subject and how big your lens is. So on some cameras, an extreme close-up may look, you know, from the shoulder up, and an extreme long shot may be just me. It's all relative, but that's generally speaking what they look like. Truck means your camera rolls to the right or to the left, the whole tripod. So if you need to reposition your camera to get a better position for a front shot as opposed to a profile shot, you tell your camera operator to truck right or truck left, and that means they move the whole tripod to the right or the left. A dolly means the tripod moves forward or back. A dolly and a zoom are different. Dan, would you demonstrate a zoom? We'll pop this up here. Okay, so this is a zoom. See what's happening? Okay, so it's the focal length of the lens is changing, but the camera doesn't move. Okay, demonstrate a dolly. See, he's getting closer to me, and you can see what he's doing. There we go. Okay, that's a dolly. He's getting closer. And sometimes, literally, in here, it means you need to dolly close enough so somebody can read the teleprompter, you know, because if you're way back in the corner. Okay. Now, I want to get it. These are all, they're all on one list, but they're they're very, very different purposes. There's camera movement and there's commands. And before you give the command, you should always give a ready cue. You ready your next move. It's like a chess game. You know, I'm here, I need to be there. You ready your next move before you give the command. So A, your camera operator knows something's coming that they need to be ready for, and your switcher knows something's coming. So it's always ready. Let me back up. The command, if you're using a cut or a take, the command is ready. Ready 1, take 1. Ready 2, take 2. Ready 3, take 3. And I try, as a matter of practice, to ready my next shot immediately. It's very easy to fall behind when you're trying to follow a conversation and to take the shot 3 words into a sentence because you don't ready your camera. So if you're going back and forth between a host and a guest, they're on, you know what cameras they're on. You're on cameras 1 and camera 3 probably. So the host is on 1. So ready 1, take 1. Ready 2. Host talks. So what do you think, Roz? Take 2. Right before Roz goes, well, you know, ready 1. Roz talks. And that's why we do it. Take one. So Roz, you know, so you, like I said, you cut on the period, you cut in the break, but if you ready the camera immediately, then all you have to do is give the command. A mix or a dissolve, back over here. So ready, the command is ready, and then you tell them what you're going to do. Ready, dissolve 1. So the switcher knows to set up a dissolve. The camera you're on and camera 1 know that you're going to dissolve to the next camera. Ready, dissolve 1, go dissolve, or take or dissolve 1. Ready, dissolve 3, dissolve 3. So you always use the transition in the command. Don't ready a dissolve and then give a take. That's like, you know, faking left and going right. So always use the transition in the command. These are real soft transitions. You would rarely see this kind of a transition in a talk show, because a talk show is like real time, moving along, person to person to person to person, you know. There are some reasons for using transitions. A cut is immediate, it's real time, it's happening right now. A dissolve tends to be used in artistic performances, symphonies, the ballet, whatever. A dissolve also denotes a change of consciousness, going from an alert state to a dream state, or a change of time. Can also indicate a change of time. But in a talk show, rarely do you need anything but a cut. Do a fade, Robert. Fade to black. Okay, fade to black, fade up. Okay, a fade is always to or from black. Always to or from black. You do not fade from one camera to another. You dissolve from one camera to another. A fade is always to or from black. A fade denotes the beginning or the end. Either the beginning or the end of the program or the beginning or the end of a segment. So we might do a long talk show that's got multiple segments and say, okay, we'll be right back after this message. You'll dip to black, fade to black, and then bring in a PSA. That's the end of the segment. And then when you come back, it's a fade in, and it's like, okay, welcome back. But the fade is always the beginning or the end. Okay, and now last thing is a wipe. And I have seen wipes used in some very creative ways. Okay, let's wipe to camera 3. Okay, ooh, diamond wipe. And let's wipe to camera 1. Yep, horizontal wipe. So a wipe is used to denote a change of reality, basically, changing time. So fades are beginnings and ends. Dissolves are changes of consciousness or passage of time. Cuts are instant, real time, happening right now. And I would hazard, you know, a guess to say that when you are directing a talk show, 99.9999% of the time, you're going to fade the show in, you're going to cut it, you're going to fade it out. Let's talk a little bit about graphics. So here's the lower third. Generally speaking, the rule of thumb is you establish people's identity in the first 10 minutes of the show, and then you don't have to do it again. I like to bring a graphic in and count to 10, like a lower third. So I'll bring in somebody's lower third as long as they're in front of the camera. If I have, you know, Deb Vinsel, CEO, TCTV, and then we take a shot of Sam and Sam starts talking, well, he's not Deb Vinsel, so you need to drop the graphic. And sometimes in those cases, your graphics operator will take care of it for you, but the director always has to be aware that whatever's in this box, whatever's here, that's what people are going to see. I always, if I know I'm going to have to come back and fix something in editing, I always get some reaction shots. And that's basically at the end of the show, you just have everybody, okay, everybody just sit still. Okay, guests, look at the host. Just look at the host. Don't talk, don't smile, don't laugh, just look at the host. Okay, now host, look at the guests, nod. Okay, and thank everybody. Please thank everybody. It's important. People who walk through the door here are volunteers. I tell the staff, thank everybody. Thank the staff. And if you're the director / producer, a little bit of food never hurt, you know. Food goes a long way to say thank you. But thank everybody, because it's important. We want people to be able to work with each other again. Let us know how we can help you be successful. Okay? Thank you for coming to Second Saturday.